And we're live. It's Jordan and NATO.
Yep, hello everyone. We're here to talk a little bit today about surviving remote work and remote life, which I'm sure many people that are listening to this conversation can probably relate to after the last 18 months or so that we've experienced. So, yeah, I don't know, Nathan, do you want to talk about some of the things that have made us like successful throughout this?
You know, because remote life is interesting. You know, when you work remote and you don't have an office to go to, because I've worked remote where there was still an office to go back to, and maybe you'd have your server there, and maybe you'd have your desk there, and you'd have things that you go back to. But it's a
Sure.
little different when you don't have that. And I mean, even from the day we started here, it's just been remote. Because how do you feel about the fact that even from day one, it's we've just never had an office? Does that bother you? I guess.
It doesn't bother me, but I mean, it does add complications to our lives. I mean, having an office would be really nice and simplify a number of things, but uh, for the moment, it's just not feasible. Hopefully soon, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great to have an office, and it'd be really nice to be in a remote position where you can work at home, but you do have like a base that's somewhere nearby that you can go and I don't know, see your servers or whatever it is. But
Totally. Yeah. Because at some point we would like to have at least a place to have our systems and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny because we actually started a company called the Cloud Under. So my branding is a little all over the place, just to clear the air from some confusion of context with all the change. Because I've been getting comments asking, "What do you do?" And because it's like not something that my life depends on, we just kind of talk about things. But my full-time job is working with the Blue Mirror team doing integrations engineering, and then I also am the chief communications officer of Cloud Underground with Jordan, where, like, for me, I mostly just kind of maintain general market pressure, and then the NATO as Code brand is where the Olympiad lives, more or less, and so that's my YouTube channel. So that's different from Cloud Underground, and then that's different from my like day-to-day work. And then I've gotten some good questions too, and I guess I'll answer this question too while we're on the topic of like, why do I want to work with a company and do my own stuff? And it's like, when you run your own companies and things like that, there are certain things that you have to make decisions on. And my choice at this point was like, do I want to be a salesperson, or do I want to spend my time doing engineering? And that's just like the thing that I like to do. So I spend more of my time doing the engineering bits, and then Jordan is full time on the Cloud Underground. But it started really where we started with Notia Point, and Notia Point's where really a lot of things, because the Cloud Underground is a pivot from Notia Point, and Notia Point is, I guess, you could look at Notia Point as Cloud Underground, which at some point we'll talk more about how that changed. Uh, but yeah, so now it's you and Laura who are the full time ones, Jordan. And I guess, how does it feel now that you have a much bigger place to and role to play, now that you've been doing it for a while, and then also we have all these things now where we can actually, like, we have tools for a change. But once again, we've never had an office. So,
yeah.
like, how do you handle how do you get so much done remotely with no one telling you what to do, barely outside of us sharing a goal? That's a good thing. I'm gonna whiteboard what you say here, because I'd like to. I think this is a good thing to talk about. So how do you get so much done? How do you manage all that productivity without me like barking at you 24/7 and micromanaging and being like, Jordan, what did you do today? Like,
Well, I mean, a part of it is just being pretty self-motivated on some of the stuff that we're doing and wanting to see it move forward. So it's not like I get up in the morning, I'm like, God, I gotta, I don't know, turn on, a couple of Raspberry Pis and play with Kubernetes or something. It's like I totally want to do that stuff. So that makes it a lot easier.
Totally.
Um, and like designing stuff, and which is obviously one of the primary functions that I've been serving in our company. Um, I don't know that there's definitely a special kind of dopamine hit that you get from like designing something and then being able to just like well print it out in our case and make it a reality and like see what you put on paper come to life. So all those things, just enjoying what I'm doing is really kind of what makes it possible for me to keep going. I've certainly been in jobs where I didn't enjoy so much what I was doing, and it made it very difficult to get things done
Right.
when I was in a situation where there wasn't somebody watching me, which was most of the time in that other job that I'm thinking of. But anyway, uh, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it definitely helps to have something that you want to work on. And then just, I think having a good kind of routine and schedule obviously will help you. So, I've been trying to get up in the mornings, kind of do, some workouts, and, like get a little bit of exercise in, and then kind of get into work from there. And I think having a routine can certainly help.
Totally. And you bring up some good points, because even thinking about the routine piece, we have like a certain way of doing things. Like the way that I generally do business is I assume that those who I'm going to enter into business with have some form of self-interest or self-motivation, and if that so happens to be true, then if I just leave them to do whatever they're going to do, then whatever is going to get done will just get done, and I don't need to be there. I kind of have a like hurry up and get out of the way, like set the goals, see, like make sure everyone knows where we're trying to go, and then just hurry up
Sure.
and get out of the way attitude about doing business, which it doesn't work for everyone, and you can't manage everyone that way. And at this point, Jordan manages the things that I do, for that matter, because I have another team that I'm like managed under. But a big one is, without having some form of a personal routine, productivity can be almost impossible. And even I have to structure, like, okay, like if I don't have a company telling me what my hours need to look like, because we've never had hours. I've never given Jordan hours. I've never told Jordan when he has to do things by. I let him know, like, here are the business goals. As long as these things get done by X date, then the business will continue to exist. And then everyone does the things that need to get done. Sometimes it's really intense, sometimes it's not, because business is business. But, like, as long as Jordan does the things that need to get done, it doesn't matter if he does it every day of the week. For all I know, Jordan might work one day a month. I doubt it, but the reality is that's how closely I watch his work. Outside of just making sure everyone's feeling good about things, and we spend time like hanging out and doing things like that as well.
Yeah.
Like we'll play games and stuff, but we don't play games and things like that like for the sake of like team building per se. We sort of focus on working with those who we enjoy working with, I guess. Like people, I don't know, I guess I'll add that to this, is like work with folks you enjoy working with.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs, and that's one of the things that I've learned from all of them. I feel like is if you enjoy the people that you work with, obviously this doesn't apply so much to remote work. It's one of the challenges of remote work, but if you like the people that you work with, you can even do a really crappy job that sucks and that you don't want to do. But if you kind of enjoy being around the people that you're doing it with, it's not so bad. So
yeah, totally. I completely agree, because it's like if you have really cool people at a job, it can be the most grueling job on the planet.
Yeah.
But if you have a good crew, then it's like, all right, everyone, here we go. We're going to do something crazy. But if you have like people who are really stressful to work with, or you just don't get along for whatever. And maybe they're still nice people, just maybe in some situations not everyone is on the same page. Then that can cause like the breakdown in a team, whether there's an office or not. And then online, it's even stronger. And so if people don't like each other in real life and in person, they most certainly tend to not like each other in real life, like online, and they'll, you get other problems. And the personal routine thing, this one I think, to be a little more specific about personal routine when working remote, when you have an office, offices kind of enforce routine for you. They're like, show up at this time.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah, and there's accountability where oftentimes, like some offices, like if you don't show up to the office on time enough times, then sometimes they'll fire you and stuff like that. When you're working from home, there's no office for people to be like, did you make it in on time? And stuff like that. And so whether or not people like that, one thing that does is it hands routine for people, whether or not you yourself are trying to build a routine. And so I think it's easy to not realize that when you do work a 9 to 5, there's a routine that's handed to you. And when a routine's handed to you, sometimes it's easier to get into a routine that works for you when you're, already kind of like in a pattern. But when you don't have like that accountability, that like enforced accountability, there is a difference between having like too much freedom and not enough freedom. But having too much freedom can be stressful if you don't know what to do with that freedom, I guess. And it can become anxiety inducing, and then what happens is, instead of building a routine, people oftentimes get depressed and just kind of stop working. We've worked with a lot of folks, and it's not human. It's very obvious, I believe, that human beings do best with other human beings. Generally speaking, human beings do not do well alone. And trying to build an environment online, if you don't have, it really does, like finding folks you like working with matters. And I will say a difference between working in an office versus working online. In an office, you're chained to making sure that people are willing to live near you, or that they already live near you. And in some ways, it can be really hard to find people in your area that all get along with each other. That can be a huge challenge. But because there's an office,
oh yeah, of course,
I guess you can kind of skirt around some of that. But I guess, all of a sudden with the internet, even though it might be harder to bond in certain ways, it's much easier to like kind of build a tribe on the internet than it is in person, just sheerly out of the fact that people don't even have to want to move to your area. They don't have to live anywhere near you, and it just creates a different dynamic, and it just works differently, because if you don't kind of find folks who all get along online, the outcome's also dramatically different from folks who don't get along in person, because then you get like online drama, and you get like some other stuff, and it's just a very different thing. So I'd say in online spaces, like, explore beyond your locale, like explore beyond your local region, talk to people around the world. I don't know, there's people everywhere on the internet, and you can kind of, if you want to build an online business that can work and grow, you leverage that, And then the other thing is, if you want to work online and you're doing something that you have no interest in, just as Jordan was kind of talking about, is he's doing stuff that he wants to do, and the same goes for me. It's like, if I'm doing things I want to do, it'll get done. If I'm going to be honest and a little blunt here, it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning is, why do I want to go work with Blue Mira and not go work with my own company? Which, to some people, that's like, why would you give that up? And it's not that I've given anything up. I haven't given that up or anything else up, because I don't see it that way. I look at working a job and running your own business as the same thing. It's who do you want to work with, and what do you want to do? That's how I see it. I don't really look at employment versus not employment. Now, employment might come with different employment structures and things like that, but also for me, it's a little weird thing, because I so happen to... Oh, this thing's annoying. 1 second. My
Well, and just while you're taking a break real quick, I want to circle back to, if you're doing something that you really don't want to be doing, there are, because I know personally I am also working on stuff that I don't want to work on. And the way that I do that is just to try and break it into the smallest possible pieces that I can and just eat little chunks at a time and try and break it up, like reward myself when I do finish one of those pieces, and then try and just work on it a little bit every day. I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but I don't know. I've thought my dad's strategies on how to try and tackle things you don't want to do.
I think that's really good advice, because it's if you don't have the ability to change what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So for me, my option was, okay, so I can either do like sales and do some things that I know I will doom us all if I have to do sales forever, because I if I don't like doing what I'm doing, I'm gonna burn out so hard that it'll just fizzle out forever, and then the whole company will go under. So that's why I would rather let the company stay in business than to put me in a situation where I'll jeopardize the company that that I helped create and all these things. And so, for folks who haven't run businesses, that could be a confusing concept. And as a leader, who's built multiple businesses, and Jordan's a leader who's running a business and things like that. But when you're trying to build something new and you want it to stay alive, sometimes it's more about survival and surviving like certain phases of things, and then deciding how you want to grow forward. And one thing that I like is I just like having like an engineering team to work with. So that's just what I want to do. And I could do that to the day I die. Is just be like, oh, build cool stuff? Okay, cool. What are we building next? All right, we just built this thing. Okay, what are we building after that? So for me, like, I'm happy with, we've got some stuff going into place, and then if there's anything that we do that benefits who we work with, then it all comes together anyways. And if there's nothing that interacts, like, I'm still going to be doing these streams because that's just what I do, which I do like doing. So, it just comes back to, like, I have a self-interest in streaming. Like, it's something that I always watch other people doing, and I used to get so jealous, and I was like, oh man, I wish I could be one of those people who goes and does streams and does all this cool stuff, and you like see everyone else doing the thing that you wish you were doing. And there's like not very many things that I look at like that. I'm like, oh, I want to go and engineer super cool platforms. Okay, so that's one thing I like want to do. And I'm like, oh, I want to stream things. And so for me, it's like really easy for me to find something that I can do remotely and excel at and do well at, because I know that the things that I like are few. The things that I like the most, that I have very few things that I actually like doing. And the engineering thing, that's more of like a curiosity for me, but I have, like, right now, this is like an artistic outlet for me, even though I'm talking about business things with Jordan. And it's like, maybe talking about business doesn't feel like art, but we're creating right now. We're just sitting here talking about what comes to mind, whether anyone agrees with us, whether they don't agree with us, whether they like us, whether they don't like us, whether you guys think that, like, I don't, and so for me, there's a large piece of artistic expression where it's like, even like the little stream thing, I'm like always messing with the green screen, and right now the green screen's not looking right, and I'm too tired to want to mess with it. But like, I get this satisfaction out of like playing with it all, because it's interesting and fun to me. And I've gotten some questions like, do you sleep, or how do you do it all? It's like, well, on one end, like, this is just also like hobby, while other people are playing like tennis or something like that. Like, I'm not playing tennis. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I used to run a lot. I guess a lot of it for me is I used to be a lot more mobile, and I'm getting back into, like, so I have a disability. I'm getting back to being a little more mobile, but I just enjoy doing this, and it gives me a great way to fill my time. But yeah, so, and then when you find people you like working with, it's like sometimes even when I'm tired, A, I like streaming, B, I like Jordan, and so I'm like, all right, well let's go do it. And then afterwards, it's fun.
Yeah.
And then I think when in the context of trying to build a remote team, it's a lot different from thinking about trying to build a team that you expect to have near you or in an office. Because when everyone's motivated, you actually really don't need to tell everyone to show up all the time. Like, everyone just they work, and it's not that.
Yeah.
And everyone talks and everyone communicates ideally, and if you have a team of people who likes each other, who's trying to solve a common goal. Jordan and I are constantly trying to solve ways to help people basically make supercomputing easier, because supercomputing is awful. And I'll tell everyone, like, Jordan came in to solve a problem for me, which is one reason why he's here today. Because even what I started doing at Notia Point was to solve something in the market that made me dread going to work with an engineering team. And so I spent a number of years trying to solve that problem, which is where the Olympiad came from, where it's like, okay, not just the Olympiad, but a lot of the things that we created with Notia Point and whatnot. I'm like, okay, so these are some things that don't exist in the market, and no matter who I get hired at, I'm going to have to deal with these problems that haven't been solved in the market, and I'm going to pull my hair out. And so, for me, I would rather have done what I did to go solve those problems in the market, and then I ran into an iron wall where I'm trying to sit here and figure out how to get this hosting thing that we're doing and these things. And I'm like, Jordan, let's work on some hardware stuff. And Jordan likes hardware stuff, and so it all came out of just like discussion and self-interest, and we just talked about it. And I remember when we I don't even know how we got around to making cases. I mean, we were working at Raspberry Pis and just using other people's cases, and I think it started with just talking about the idea that you can make like wooden cases these days.
Sure.
And then we were
Yeah.
like, hey, what if we could just like make cases? Because there's a challenge when I want to try to like assemble all of the things. I'm trying to build software, but I'm not really at the level of like trying to assemble hardware like Jordan is. I can do it. I can set things up enough to basically like do what's called staging. So I can stage hardware for building software. That's a skill that I have. But Jordan can make the stage beautiful and do staging too. And so, how much better does that get, where it's like, okay, so I have this problem where so really, how did we build a team in the first place, and how do we keep getting more help from others? It's someone has something that we need and they have something that they need. I guess it's really just that simple, and then you just talk to each other and then see if you can help each other. And that's also why I work with Blue Mirror, because it's like, oh, we can all help each other. So even just like Cloud Underground and all that stuff, that's all we do is just ask people what they need. That's kind of what our business is based on. And it's it didn't start as Cloud, but even we needed Cloud. And then we built, instead of complaining that our solutions didn't exist, Jordan, Lauren, and I put our heads together in 2020 and created an alternative for teams who don't want to use something like AWS and things like that. And it's, someone who has the skills can just go buy a Raspberry Pi, but what we're doing is we're not done with some of the stuff yet, but making it easier for people who don't have cloud skills to just go and take like a Raspberry Pi and turn it into a glorious hosting platform that can run crazy technologies or websites or whatever you're trying. A lot of people just don't have those skills, but the need is there. And we have the skills, and so that's what Jordan does. And because we know how to work remotely, we can work with anyone around the world, and we can help anyone around the world. But it really comes down to how do you survive remote life? How do you make a business grow that's remote? I don't know how you could do it without these things. I guess that's
Sure.
my thought. So I guess I don't want to overwhelm the audience too much, but I guess, do you have any other thoughts around like what are some things that would really make it easier to? Let me stop the music at this time. So, in closing thoughts, like, do you have any other thoughts around like how to survive remote life, or some things that are just kind of sometimes stressful that come with remote life.
Well, I think one of the best things you can possibly do for your company or your team or whatever it is, if it's remote, is to streamline your communications as much as possible. Like, make sure that there's as few outlets for communication as you can basically have. And what was I saying? Um, yeah, I mean, just making sure that the communication is good. So, and making sure that people know when they need to talk to each other, and like not overwhelming with communication too, because meetings are, can definitely lower productivity if they're happening too often. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of brief thought.
Yeah, and less meetings. I think that's good advice. If
Less
you have,
meetings, but you do need meetings, and so
yeah,
just
that's
making
true.
sure that they're concise and that they're well organized is good.
I agree with that. Laura's really good at the organized meetings things.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
good at the do random things, which doesn't say much for organization, but when you put it together, it works. The good stuff. Well, thanks for doing this session, Jordan. And then I guess we'll be talking about more business development, career development later, because one thing that I want to close on is Cloud Underground is finally launching. And the Cloud Underground, to give those listening wondering what this Cloud Underground thing is, Noja Point, we had launched this DevSecOps Dojo, and the DevSecOps Dojo was designed to kind of teach people how to build cloud from ground up. So much so that we were even going to go all the way and just like build an entire cloud business to show what it looks like, and then kind of show like building a cloud business as education. Well, the DevSecOps Dojo has gotten that far, and now the Cloud Underground is here. And now we have nice new cases and all kinds of things coming out, and new ways to develop, and new rapid development models that we teach in the DevSecOps Dojo that are also secure. And the DevSecOps Dojo is something that's really my thing, I guess, where it started, but it's kind of become a little bit of everyone's thing. And then really, the cases and the systems that we have are the things that Jordan develops. So Jordan creates little supercomputers uh, that are able to fit on your desk, where you can actually host an entire website or whatever you're trying to do from your desk. And so when you put my work with Jordan's work, then we help people build solutions, cloud solutions. So that's pretty much what's coming around the corner. So we'll talk about that a little more next week. But for now, you'll see more about the Cloud Underground coming up, and the YouTube channel is separate. So we'll be talking about what we talk about in general. So thanks for watching, and
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
have a good one.